So can we hear a little bit about you, Henry, about you and your family, but about your family, your church involvement, your community?
Sí, yo soy miembro de la Iglesia Evangelica Pentecostal Jesucristo Liberador y allí nosotros desarrollamos un trabajo.
He's been involved in the church, the evangelical church of like Jesucristo Liberador, so liberating Jesus, and um, the work that they do in that church is not only kind of theological and religious work, but it's also formation work outside of like the realm of religion itself. So they've done work around women's rights, girls' rights, particularly music, solidarity beyond that with other communities. All of it really framed within that kind of liberation perspective that they work with at the church. He himself has been involved as an economist in the work of the church, leading some of those programs. The programs are they for like more than 40 years. He himself is 47, but as he became part of the church, he started participating in those projects that were already in motion. What informs the values of the church is liberation theology and the principles of liberation that emanate from the gospel that really motivates them to work with marginalized groups in general, with groups that have suffered disproportionate oppression, such as women, girls, Afro Venezuelans, and people within the LGBTQ spectrum. So those are groups that they work with, and they are very proud to work with them, particularly as Pentecostal churches tend to be conservative. He's aware of that, and tend to be he uses the word fundamentalist. So to be away from the work with those margin groups, particularly the latter of the ones that I mentioned. But within his church, he's very lucky, and he's very blessed that his specific church has a different outlook, which through liberation, it really highlights the value of life in all of its forms.
And Henry, a little bit more about yourself. Who are you?
Bueno, realmente eso lo disfruto mucho.
Even though he's an economist, he considers himself a popular educator, really the real translation of that is an educator of the people. So running programs with the community. He himself is part of the kind of the music group that is part of the church, and he sees his role as leadership within that. But also, within preaching and reflection. So being able to reflect and interpret the gospel, and within the framework of liberation that works, that informs the church, and being able to share how his reflection has kind of liberated himself with the larger community.
Henry, can you tell me, please, a summary of what Venezuelans are experiencing these days and why?
Sí, sí, fíjate que, digamos,
Just Henry telling us that over the past 5-6 years, the situation has worsened in Venezuela, and the situation is he sees it as mainly caused by the kind of sanctions that are imposed in Venezuela by outside governments, especially by the United States. The situation in Venezuela was improving due to the government measures around the use of the oil nationally, and that was bringing up the standard of living, and from the moment that the sanctions began, the situation took a turn, and things started to decline, and both the social situation of Venezuela, but also the personal situation of many Venezuelans, like confronting poverty, has really improved, but declined because of the sanctions that have worsened. Um, he kind of goes back to the fact that that's something that has started in the last 5 or 6 years. He wants to make that clear that that time frame is important to understand what is happening currently in Venezuela.
Henry, can you tell us a little bit about how the sanctions are affecting your family and your community?
Bueno, una de las cosas que ha afectado, han tenido que obligar a buscar otra alternativa.
So the sanctions have definitely affected the life of Venezuelans through the pressure that they put on the government. The government used to pay salaries that in Henry's opinion, were able to ensure a dignity of life for Venezuelans. But since in the same time frame that he's been talking about, the minimum salary has declined to $25 per month. That's what the government can handle at the moment, which is definitely not enough, and that is risking that dignity of life that he's been talking about before. He's an economist. He worked for the community. So it's not only the fact that his salary has been affected, but his own ability to work for the community, serving them in through the field that he chose to serve them with.
Henry, can you tell us about the plan that your family has come up with for how you can sustain yourselves in the economy?
Bueno, si entendí, una opción de tantas que hemos explorado.
So the two options that they have explored. So in the moment of crisis, they tried to be creative and found ways to generate kind of alternative income. One of the avenues of that has been transportation. So kind of a taxi service that they try to kind of develop on the spot, but also some a kind of a clothing business, like sewing clothes, and for that they need some like help with the machinery to be able to produce it at a rate that it will have some return, so that they will have some income out of that. And at the moment, because some of that is expensive, they haven't been able to acquire it. But those are the two avenues he's describing. He wants you to know that if this goes to like a longer term project, that he wants to ensure that they can contribute something back. That's part of it, but also that this can perhaps evolve into a project in which the church on his end can be, as opposed to being a personal project, that they can get involved, and that you can have more of a partnership, more than what it is at this point. That he acknowledges that the help is very timely, and that it needs to start at